Welcome to episode 672 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Guthart. And this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. But not exactly this time, because it's the end of the year and we usually do something a little different this time. Josh, what's this all about?
Yeah, so we are going to do it quite differently this time. We are going to give everybody an update on what is our entertainment centers looked like in the year 2024 from primarily an equipment perspective, but also, you know, we're talking about movies and shows and games and music and all of that stuff all of the time. What are our sources for all of that content? So we're going to talk through all of that, what's working, what isn't working, and that's going to be the show this week because, you know, we're in that period of time in between Christmas and New Year's and really most importantly, CES. So not tons of news for very, very good reasons. So we're going to cover this stuff instead and hopefully inspire maybe some ideas for maybe ways that you want to be consuming all of this stuff in your own homes. So we're going to take this kind of one sort of location at a time. Like Richard and I both have a primary place where we're going to sit and watch a movie or a TV show. Although I do feel like we need to point out the fact that we don't have elaborate home theaters in our houses.
Right.
We've had some listeners make that assumption previously. And I want to set the record straight that like we don't have grand theaters with, you know, 120-inch projection screens and stuff like that. We just have good TVs and stuff like that. So
yeah, and just to qualify that, we don't have any theaters, not even just grand theaters. We don't have any theaters. We have family rooms.
Exactly. So Richard, why don't we start with your primary viewing location?
And as I just hinted, it is the family room. And it's not an ideal location because there are windows everywhere, which was really bugging me when we were trying to watch something in the low afternoon sun hours of the winter. But yeah, we have an LG, I think it's the B1 65-inch OLED. I believe it's the same one that you have. And we have that not over the fireplace. Hopefully this is the first place and time where I can inspire our listeners to not put their television over their fireplace. And I know we joke about this all the time. The answer to why is that ideally when you're viewing the television, you want it to be at your eye level. And that's your eye level where you're observing it, which is usually in a sitting position. So sometimes it might be a little bit higher if you also say watch from an adjacent room, but over a fireplace just means craning your neck to go up and watch something higher. And that's not a comfortable position over a long period of time. So we have ours at an angle in the corner of the room. Not ideal. Facing windows, also not ideal. Now, from a viewing perspective, it's a nice place for the TV to be, but from an audio perspective, it's very challenging because we use a sound bar and we have the Sonos Arc as the sound bar with the sub and with Era speakers in the back. And they sound good, but I can't get a true surround experience in the room the way I have this set up because it's not really possible when the TV's in a corner and you have kind of a sectional sofa on the opposing wall. It's not really possible to get the surround speakers literally behind everyone. Just can't happen.
Right.
And that's the only way you're going to get a true surround experience. But it's good enough and I can live with it. And the sound in the room is very good. I really do like the Sonos speakers for the setup. Very, very rarely have any issues with them, despite all of the Sonos hate that everyone's been throwing around this year. I've had plenty of Sonos problems, but not with these devices. These devices work great with this television and really happy about that. Apple TV is our primary source of entertainment, so I don't use any of the built-in stuff on the LG. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Even if I cast to the device, I am doing it through the Apple TV. The one and only time that we end up using something built into the television is if someone comes over with an Android phone and they want to cast something to the television. They can do that, I believe, through their Android phone, but cannot do it through our Apple TV. It has to go directly to the television. So that's a little bit more useful for them, not so much for me. For also controlling the speakers in the space for music, we have a HomePod in the same space, and we just bark out commands to our assistant from Apple to play music on the Sonos speakers. And we can do that just by having those speakers grouped and assigned in Apple Home to an area, like a zone. And then so I say, hey, play this downstairs. And it knows to play music on those speakers, including the soundbar and sub and everything, as well as any other speakers in downstairs area, which is nice. As a secondary content source, we have the Xbox One S. I don't know if you or I, Josh, might be better at guessing when I last had it turned on. It's been a while. It's been so long that there are now, I believe, like family pictures in front of it on the stand that we have our TV on. So it's back there somewhere. But I don't.
And your only real use for that was for the 4K Blu-ray player, right?
Correct. And nearly all of that content is either already up in the cloud somewhere from one of the services that we have or on my Plex server. Now, I'm still having the issue playing 4K content from the Plex server. I still have to deal with that at some point in time. But yeah. And then wrapping up the whole experience, I use the Hue Sync box, which is this little pass-through box that Hue sells for an obscene amount of money. I believe it's $279 that will synchronize any Hue lights you have in the space, and you map them to the room based on their position relative to you and the television, and it gives a glowing effect in the room aligned with what you're watching on TV, which can be really, really cool, particularly with movies and games. So that is my overall family room experience. Oh, and as a remote control, I should mention that because we used to talk about remotes a lot, and I've pretty much given up on third-party remotes coming in and taking the place that Harmony once had, and we just use the Apple TV remote, as limited as it is.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up remotes because that is an important thing. We did talk about them a lot. All right, I have a somewhat similar arrangement. Again, more of a family room, living room sort of experience. We do call ours the living room. It is not the room with fireplace in it, so also not a television mounted above the fireplace. But also like yours, I've got a 65-inch LG OLED. I think mine is the C2. It came a year after yours, but I don't remember for sure. I suppose I could have looked. My primary, so I've got a bunch of devices plugged into this thing. The main thing that we're watching content on, we switched to the on Google TV 4K Pro device. We've been Android/Google TV users for years since I got the original NVIDIA Shield TV back in 2015 or something like that. I think that device came out. So that is our primary device. And like you, we've given up on using Harmonies and stuff like that, especially after my last Harmony broke. And that was after Logitech had given up on remotes. So we've been using the on remote for pretty much everything. It has a button that can change inputs. So it pretty much does the job except for when LG is like, hey, your TV has a software update and you must use the LG remote control to go through this. I'm like, really?
Yikes.
This is what I have to pull my remote out for? Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Like you, pretty much only use the built-in LG stuff, but kind of the opposite of you. If I need to cast from my iPad or my MacBook to the TV. All of our phones are Android, so
yeah. Okay, right.
right. So we do any casting, which is still pretty limited, through the on Google TV device. Of course, my Xbox Series X is typically plugged in down there. I say typically because sometimes I move it up to my office, along with the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4 Slim. And then for sound, I'm still using the WiSA SoundSend device, which essentially connects like a soundbar. It uses eARC through one of the HDMI ports and then sends sound wirelessly to WiSA speakers, which I've got 5 of them. Up until this winter break, I was only doing, 3.1. I had 3 at the front and then the subwoofer. And when we set up our Christmas tree, we have to move the couch around and all of that. And it puts a big gap to the side of the couch. And I thought, this is my opportunity to bring the surround speakers up and actually hook them up and put them on speaker stands and see if I can get buy-in. And so far, Jen is okay with them. I'm for sure appreciating having more speaker sources in the house. So we'll see if it lasts when we take down the Christmas tree and move the couch sort of back. But it's going well so far.
Cool. Very cool.
I figure it's also worth pointing out a couple of the other hardware devices specifically for gaming. I've talked a lot about headsets this year. I did end up settling on the Turtle Beach Stealth 700 Gen 3, partly because it's just a really great headset and also because it can very easily be paired with multiple devices. I've got 3 game consoles hooked up to one TV. I don't want to have 2 or 3 different headsets, and this allows me to share a headset across 2 different consoles. The other nerdy thing that I'm going to point out, just because it is something that I noticed. So I bought this thing so I'm kind of cheap, right? I recognize that I'm old and my reactions are slow, but I still want to be good at Call of Duty. So I need every possible advantage that I can get. But I'm also not willing to spend the money on an Xbox Elite controller for $160 when the quality isn't great. So instead, I found online for like $15 this product called the QuickShot Pro from a company I'd never heard of before called Bionik, spelled Bionik. They are trigger, I don't even remember what they call them, but it's basically you pop off part of the controller on your Xbox controller and put these in place, and it shortens the length of the throw of the triggers on the controller. They are trigger locks, adjustable trigger locks. I don't know if they're actually helping. They might be helping. My KD ratio hasn't changed that much in Call of Duty, so I don't know. But that is the other big, not even really big, it's a $15 gaming thing that I bought recently. So that's my living room. Let's move on to secondary places.
Yeah, so we both have a couple secondary spaces. I have a few. You have one primary secondary space. That sounded weird. So my first is my office. And I have the Samsung 50-inch frame in there that was in my old office. It's now in my office in the new home here. With that, primarily, I also use Apple TV. I occasionally use the on Google TV 4K, whatever else it's called, device from Walmart. I usually am just using that for testing. I'm not using that as kind of a daily driver thing. I still just use Apple TV as my primary on that, since that's my primary in the family room. And I do that for a couple of reasons, because it includes things like doorbell previews and stuff like that I I like having across my TVs when I can. In my office, I also have two Sonos Era speakers, and I use them as stereo speakers primarily for music. I have occasionally casted music from the TV to that, but usually only if it's like a performance or something like that. I don't generally bother because I'm not really ever sitting down and watching anything with great intensity in the office. If the TV's on in the office, it's usually there as background, or it's there because I wanted to watch something quickly from YouTube. And I tend to, with this, use the TV remote more than anything else. So Samsung comes with a nice, simple, curved remote. I don't know if you've ever seen the thin form factor kind of arched remote that they make with some of their newer TVs, but it's actually quite nice. It's very simple and straightforward. It's nice ergonomically, and with HDMI CEC, it manages to control things just fine. Well, not the on, but the Apple TV thing. The other thing that I use this TV for is its actual intent, which is as a picture frame. So oftentimes in the morning, I'll turn the TV on and it'll just have like a photograph that I've taken up there as appearing as if it's a matted photo on the wall, really big. And I have either that or one of a number of moving environmental things that they offer up on the television to provide just nice, kind of interesting background effects. And that's the extent that I use anything built into this TV as well, because I'm generally not using any of the services that are built into it. I use the Apple TV for everything. We also have a room upstairs that we refer to as the library, and as obnoxious and privileged as that sounds, it's really just a room with bookcases, a sofa, and a table and chairs, like a game table and chairs, with wall coverings to make it look really, really much nicer than it is. And we have ended up using that kind of as a secondary place to watch TV if someone's watching something downstairs that the other person doesn't want to watch. I've also taken to watching anything Game of Thrones related in that room because I can get it much, much darker. So it's easier to watch dark content in that room. That room houses the LG 55-inch OLED that we used to have in our old family room. So when we moved, I repurposed that and put it upstairs, and it works really nicely. I mounted it onto the wall and hid all the cables and everything. And with that, again, we use the Apple TV device for that. So that pretty much has Apple TV on all of the common space TVs. And then finally, I have a TV in my workshop that I just installed a couple of months ago. This is just a cheap TCL 42-inch Google TV television that's edge lit, and I think it's maybe 1080. I think it's 1080.
I'm sure it's 1080.
But it's just for me to be able to watch the news or watch YouTube videos or music videos or something when I'm working down in my workshop, and that's all it's got to do. Now, I initially hooked that up to the Sonos One speakers, older Sonos speakers that I have down in my workshop. I use them all the time for just listening to music, but I had an old Sonos Connect that allowed me to then tie them into the output from the audio of the television. And that was nice. I'd turn on the TV and the old Connect device would just automatically send the audio to those Sonos speakers. Notice that everything I said there is in past tense. And the reason for that is that it isn't working anymore. And I don't know why. I've taken apart all the wiring, redone it. I've checked all the settings. I cannot seem to get it working anymore. Now, I do have a newer device similar to the Kinect. The Sonos Port is the newer equivalent of that. I'm not using that anywhere in the house. And I could potentially hook that up and try that. But I really wanted the Kinect to work because I even 3D printed a custom wall mount for it so that it's hidden behind the television. So I have to figure that out at some point in time. Not a fully working solution for me yet. All right. That's the rest of my house. How about the rest of your house?
Okay. Well, the secondary place for me, because I'm not really going to talk about my office. It's not really that interesting. I don't have like a secondary screen or anything in my office, but I do occasionally watch stuff, or like I said, I occasionally bring my Xbox up here too and just plug it into the 34-inch computer monitor that I have and stuff like that. But we do have another seating area in the basement that we really put together for the kids when they've got their friends over and stuff. So my older 55-inch Vizio 4K TV, I think the model was the D55. I mean, frankly, for our listeners who have been around for a while, they might remember. They might have a better memory than me. You know, like all of these things that we're talking about, Richard, we've purchased like while doing the show. So we've probably talked about all of these things at one point or another in the past. So that Vizio 4K is downstairs in the basement. I had been using the TiVo Stream. What did that have another?
Nope. TiVo Stream 4K.
TiVo Stream 4K. Yes. That thing's just not good. Finally gave up on that. And so it also has my Xbox One S for the kid to play Minecraft or whatever, Roblox, whatever she wants to down there occasionally with friends. And then finally, just this weekend, actually, I moved the NVIDIA Shield TV down there because, well, the TiVo Stream was a nightmare. And I wanted I wanted the TV to actually get used more frequently, and having something that's actually more usable will allow that to actually happen. So the NVIDIA Shield is now there, which is still operating as my Plex server and my channel's DVR server for a little while longer until I come up with a new solution to that, since that's not going to be supported for much longer. And that's the basement.
All right. So next up, we were going to take a look at how we consume media outside of our homes. And so that encompasses like traveling and in our vehicles and such. So for me, when I travel, I pretty much have two things that I'm using pretty consistently. My iPad is my go-to if I'm on a plane or if I just have some spare time and I want to quickly watch something. So I always have that with me when I'm traveling. It's not a huge screen. It's 11 inches, but it does the job, and it's kind of perfect without being an encumberment when I'm juggling stuff in a plane seat. For hotels, or if I travel to our vacation home, I use the Chromecast with Google TV. So that's the dongle that allows you to Chromecast, but also has Google TV built in. And that has become, my secondary operating environment for TV that I'm really quite comfortable with. And since we use YouTube TV, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, that ends up integrating seamlessly, which I love. And, I'm kind of hit or miss. I don't know if you do this when you travel, Josh, but if I'm in a hotel and it's late and I want to crash and just watch something, I'll usually first try to see if there's a way for me to plug my own dongle into the television before I bother trying to connect to any of their apps or watch something off of their TV. And this does the job kind of perfectly for that.
Yeah. When I travel, like I never even turn the TV on in hotel rooms. I think partly it's because I try to spend as little time as possible in the hotel room. But even when I get back in the evening, if I want to wind down, I'm probably just looking at my phone or my Switch or my iPad, which are some of the primary devices that I'm taking and traveling with me.
Fair
Again,
enough.
yeah, like you, I don't get on a plane without my iPad. It's an iPad Air 4th gen, also 11-inch. That might be something that gets replaced fairly soon. I'm really debating about whether or not I would want one of the bigger, like 13-inch-ish iPads, but
Oh, wow.
they're really big, which
They
is
are.
kind of good and kind of not at the same time. So we'll see about that. Also recently picked up the Google Pixel Buds Pro 2. I have not been on an airplane yet with them, so I'm curious to see how well they do with the noise cancellation on an airplane. Regularly when I travel, I do bring the Nintendo Switch just to have something to play. I'm not much of a phone gamer, so the Switch works to some extent there. And then while we're kind of talking about different places where we consume stuff, I thought I'd bring up my odd little workout setup too, because I run a lot, and in the winter I do half marathon training, and I get kind of I don't really love running outside at 5:30 in the morning when it's cold and dark. So a lot of times I'll just go to the treadmill. And so I had set up a 24-inch computer monitor on a mount above my treadmill at eye level, that I then have a USB-C hub attached to that I plug into my iPad and then connect the iPad to my Bluetooth earbuds and to the display so that I can be watching TV through my iPad on that monitor at eye level without bending my neck in weird directions and stuff like that, and keeping myself entertained on the treadmill.
Yeah, very nice. You mentioned the earbuds that you use for travel, or that you plan to use. I forgot to mention, I still use the Bose Quiet Comfort 3s as my go-to when I'm on a plane. They have fairly good active noise canceling. I tend to find that it's better than just using the noise cancellation on the AirPod Pros. So I expect I'm going to just keep using them until they die.
Right. What is the charging interface? Please don't tell me it's micro USB.
No, I think it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That would be the killer for me. Like, I have to keep a micro USB cable around just to charge these things.
Mini would be worse.
Mini would be worse. Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, the last place is probably in our vehicles, and for using, for enjoying entertainment content in my car, I rely almost exclusively on CarPlay. So while my car has a pretty good experience in terms of connecting with Bluetooth and so forth, they've actually set it up so that, like in the past, if you have a car and it had Bluetooth, you were really lucky if the Bluetooth was smart enough that it would actually be able to see into your iTunes library if you connected an Apple device, and be able to navigate and control it, including playlists and stuff like that, right on the entertainment center. That's really slick. And apparently BMW said, well, that's a waste of time if we're supporting CarPlay for us to build all that too. So if you want to consume your media in our cars, you're going to use CarPlay. And so that's what I do. I use Pocket Casts primarily when I'm listening to content in the car. And that's, of course, for my podcasts, but that's what I'm primarily listening to. And then if I have some spare time, meaning I'm finished with any current podcasts in my queue, then I'll usually defer to whatever I'm listening to in audiobook. And my service for that is Audible. And then finally, if I'm just needing a break and I want to, belt out some tunes with someone on the radio, then I'm listening to Apple Music. And we use Apple Music pretty much throughout our home all the time. It's what we call up through Siri. It's what I use even primarily through Sonos, because it's the primary music subscription that we have, even though we have Prime Music and some other stuff that we can get for free.
Your car is like brand new, so I'm assuming the answer to this is yes, but But I'm curious because I have a friend who also just bought a brand new car like at Thanksgiving, and her new car does not have wireless CarPlay. Does your car have wireless CarPlay?
Oh, yeah, it does. And it's funny you say that because I am just shocked when nowadays, in today's day and age, you can still buy a car with CarPlay that requires you to connect your phone with a cable. That's just absurd.
Right. And so you probably even have like a wireless charging area to stick your phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. So my phone or my car is a little bit older. It's a 2020. It does have Android Auto, and so that is what I'm primarily using. But it's one of these dark ages Android Auto situations where it does have to be plugged in.
Like an animal.
Right, like an animal. But that's annoying. So I bought the AA wireless dongle, which the AA stands for Android Auto. There's a couple of different Android Auto wireless dongle things out there. This one was the one with the highest reviews. It's fine. It works most of the time, but it's slow to connect. Like it seriously takes 45 seconds before it connects.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'm already moving before it is connected. And that's fine until it doesn't actually connect, because then I'm already moving and I can't really easily fix the problem. So it's okay. There's a new one. I don't know if it's actually any better. I think it's supposed to be better for people who want to use it for CarPlay, or for people who want to pair multiple phones through a device like this. But for the most part, it gets the job done of giving me wireless Android Auto. I do not have a wireless charging thing in my phone. So if I do need to charge, I do have a USB cable in my phone or in my car also to charge and connect wired through it. But that's not, it's not like I'm taking my car on many long road trips. I don't need to charge my phone in my car very often. But
well, and frankly, I mean, the wireless charging, I think, is just an added bonus.
Yeah.
So that's not something I particularly care about. The wireless connection is something that, to me, was a deal killer. And my last car didn't have that. And I did the same thing that you did. I ended up buying a dongle adapter that would allow me to connect CarPlay through it. And it was slow and problematic, but it was better than having to connect it to a cable every single time I got in the car.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, like if you're just running to the grocery store, I don't want to have to plug in my phone both times. And it's like, oh, and I'm going to stop at the gas station and I'm going to stop here. And like, It's just annoying.
Right.
Just leave the phone in your pocket and go. It's way better.
Yep. Completely.
All right. Let's talk about where we're getting all this content.
Yeah, it's interesting as I was doing this, thinking through all the different services that I have, and I know we've talked about these, and I'm usually the one saying, "Yeah, I have that. Yeah, I have that. Yeah, I have that." I don't know. I'm looking through your list, and your list is pretty long too, Josh. So maybe we just kind of go down the list and say, "Yep, check." But I still haven't given up the concept of linear television, meaning television that is on a broadcast schedule and provided even in a streaming fashion, like it might be on cable. So for me, I use YouTube TV for that. It is both my cable alternative and it is my DVR. It has a less than ideal built-in DVR solution that lets you record all or nothing of any show, and they will keep that recording around forever, asterisk. And that asterisk means as long as they are licensed to, or as long as they decide to, because those terms could change at any point in time.
Does this mean that things disappear during carriage disputes?
Oh, totally.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like you may remember that I had a hard time watching the end of the Snowpiercer series, because season 3, which was the last aired season, ended. I hadn't watched it on time. And then the provider decided to take it off of all content sources. So they deleted my recordings.
My gosh. Oh,
yeah.
Yikes.
So in my mind, that's not doing what a DVR is supposed to be doing.
No.
And because it's all or nothing, like, for example, last night, I wanted to watch the special that ABC put out for 2020 honoring Jimmy Carter. That was on at a weird time. But to record that, I had to record, I'm pretty sure that this is correct, I had to record all of 2020. So 2020 stuff is now all scheduled to record. There's no just record this episode. So now I need to remember to go back and unrecord it, and it won't save any further episodes. Also doesn't let me go back and delete old stuff.
What?
So I can't say, all right, I've watched this, so I don't want it to be around anymore. It just sticks around. It's just there, just cluttering things up.
Wow.
It's less than ideal as a DVR. Everybody's like, oh, it's unlimited. Well,
do you want it to be unlimited? Right.
Right. Exactly. So are you still doing linear TV in your home?
A little, but not with something like that. Except for during the NHL playoffs, I will subscribe to a service like this, typically Sling TV. But I pretty much the only thing that I want linear TV for is sports, and that's really just and like that doesn't even feel like it really fits into what we would typically call linear TV, even though it is. But so for football, that's typically just over the air for me. I've still got an HD Home Run over the air tuner, and then I'm using either the HD Home Run app itself or to watch live sometimes, or the channel's DVR service to watch that. So that is the primary for me, and no one else in my house uses that. No one watches linear TV other than me in my house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. All right. So that's my primary linear TV source. Then I think we already talked about music. For music, our primary source is Apple Music, and you're still a Spotify person, right?
Yep, we are Spotify across the board. Everybody in the house.
In the whole house? Okay. All right. So let's just kind of go down the list of services here. I have Netflix. You have Netflix?
We've got Netflix.
All right. I'm doing the 4K version or whatever it is. Do you have that?
I cut mine back because no one else cared about the video quality, and I was trying to save some bucks.
Okay. Got it. I am currently an Amazon Prime customer, so we have Prime Video. I do not pay to get rid of the commercials. If I weren't so anti-Jeff Bezos right now, I might pay for that, but I'm just not gonna, and I don't even know if I'm going to be keeping Prime. So this may go away. Do you use Prime?
We are Amazon Prime subscribers, so we get the Prime Video. I do not pay extra to get rid of ads. I would maybe consider it if I also didn't have complicated feelings about Jeff Bezos, and if we actually watched more of the content, but we don't. I haven't watched anything on Prime Video since Jack Ryan last winter.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's been a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Apple TV Plus, watch a lot of stuff on that. You have that, right?
We have it, but it's not one that we keep all the time. So we I like to bring up this strategy for people all the time.
Yep.
Like,
fair enough.
You don't need to subscribe to every service all the time. Just subscribe to them for a couple of months, watch things that you want, and cancel and switch to something else.
Yep.
We currently have Apple TV Plus because Silo is on and Severance is coming back soon.
Yep. That makes sense. You know, you mentioned the cost factor of this. I'll talk about that a little bit. And it's probably worth mentioning how I get these things, right? So Apple Music and Apple TV Plus are part of a bundle that includes other Apple services. So that's kind of built into some stuff that I'm already paying for with Apple. Netflix, I'm just paying the max amount of Netflix that I can pay for. Prime Video isn't anything more than it would be because I'm just using the basic Prime Video stuff. I have the Disney Plus Hulu ESPN bundle. And so I'm saving as much money as I can on that. And I think you have that too, don't you?
Yes, because they all want Disney Plus and I want ESPN and nobody cares about Hulu.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the services that I get a little bit of a rebate on from American Express. Certain American Express cards give up to $20 back each month for specific digital services. And I think this is one of them. So part of that is getting discounted with a cashback incentive. And then similar with Peacock, I have Peacock Premium and I'm paying nothing for it because, again, American Express is paying for the whole thing, which is really nice.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we should call out a little bit more often than we do. Like, if you have an American Express card, gold or platinum, they both have programs where if you pay for it with your Amex card, they will just cover that for you. So if you have one of those cards, do that.
My last Amex bill was like $10. I'm like, how is that possible? I looked at it and it was all of these deductions and then a return that I had made. I'm like, oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And that even included my Clear also just renewed. And that gets comped too.
Right.
So, all right. Paramount Plus. I have Paramount Plus with Showtime, and I am taking advantage of the Walmart Plus discount for that. So I'm paying, I believe, $7 a month for Paramount Plus with Showtime. And that's a nice discount. Walmart Plus, I don't pay for. American Express does.
Nice. We had Paramount Plus briefly when one of the kids was really into Young Sheldon. And the last season was only available on Paramount Plus. And then we canceled once they watched it.
Okay. Yep. I have Max. I am somehow not paying for it. Please don't tell AT&T because this offer isn't supposed to still exist. But I still get it. So that's awesome.
I have Max also. I'm paying for it, but not much. This is now the second year in a row where at Black Friday, they've had a ridiculous deal. I don't remember exactly what it was last year, but this year it was $2.99 a month for 6 months for the ad-supported plan, and I will give them $3 a month to watch what is on Max. So I will have it for the next, 5 months.
Cool. That is it for the paid video services. We use one other streaming service occasionally called Canopy. That is a service that you can get for free from most public libraries with your membership. So they have the entire Criterion collection available and a lot of really good documentaries and classic films. So if you're into that kind of stuff, that's something that you might want to look into. And then I can't let this go without mentioning Plex, right? Plex is my content library for all of my stuff. Any disc that I have stowed away in a box somewhere in my basement is up on my Plex server. And that is generally how we access all of that content from any device, which is such a nice thing. Even though I can't get the 4K stuff to work yet, we'll have to figure out what's going on there. It just hasn't been enough of a priority for me with everything else going on. And then finally, I think I mentioned before, Audible is my primary source, really my only source for audiobooks. Occasionally, I find a downloadable audiobook. For example, something that Tom Merritt might have written is downloadable from another source. I'll often get it that way. But even his content is now up on Audible as well. So I pretty much just stick there for that content.
So if you do get an audiobook from a different source, how are you listening to it?
That's a good question. Because it's been so long since I've done that. I am pretty sure that the way I did that was to load them into either the Kindle or the Apple Books app. And both of them, I believe, have the ability to play back various audio book formats.
Okay. I've never dabbled in that. I know there are other third-party audiobook resale shops out there, but not resale. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not secondhand
places
audiobook.
to get content.
Yes,
but
right.
Yeah. So I need to think about this a little bit more. I'm going to research this now that you've asked it, because it's, like I said, it's been so long. I just don't remember what my workflow was.
Yeah. I wanted to call out a couple of other things for me. I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, but Audible is the place that I want to turn to last because it's the most expensive typically. So I will always start with the Libby app, which is getting audiobooks through the library. If Libby doesn't have it, the second place that I will try is Hoopla. I'm very frustrated with Hoopla.
That was a heavy sigh.
I want to love Hoopla. I finally got around to emailing their customer support over. I felt bad for sending this on Christmas Eve. I was like, I hope no one is working on Christmas Eve and reading the support email. I don't think they did. I didn't get a response until later in the week. It's a decent app, but Android aggressively kills the app when you've paused what you're listening to. And so on a day like Christmas Eve, when I'm doing a bunch of stuff all around the house and I'm just trying to listen to a book, I need to frequently pause it from my headphones. And regularly, when I go to unpause it, it does not resume. And I have to go and grab my phone, open the app, and launch it again. And it's annoying. So Hoopla is there as another source for getting books from the library. Spotify, because I'm the primary Spotify Family Plan account holder, I do get Spotify books occasionally from there. And then Audible is my last option. Like you, I do have a Plex server. I don't use it nearly as much as you probably use yours, but I'm going to play around with it more as a DVR server since I have to at least migrate my channel's DVR. I want to see if TV has gotten better on Plex recently since the last time I played with it. And then lastly, because I'm the gamer of the two of us, I figured should probably point out the gaming subscription that I have also, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, that gets you everything, the online multiplayer and the hundreds of games in the catalog, including day one access to any new Microsoft, what do they call it? Xbox Studios, whatever. They keep renaming their publishing wing. All of their Xbox first-party games day one. I think that covers... Oh, nope. I did want to mention one other place for podcast that I think is worth calling out. I love sports too, so I do also subscribe to The Athletic. It started as a kind of a solo sports news outlet, more of like a news written form, but they also have podcasts. So I pay for a subscription to The Athletic to get their podcast ad free. And then also, and I know Richard does this too, a few Patreon supported podcast in there also. So that is all of my sources. Richard, let's quickly dive into what our normal, what's going on in our entertainment centers section.
Yeah, mine is unsurprisingly rather holiday themed. But we'll start off with some regulars that I'm watching with some other stuff finished now. I've gotten back to Welcome to Wrexham Season 3. I know that's old, but I just hadn't gotten a chance to watch it with my friend. And so now we're sitting down to follow up on those episodes. I am trying to catch up on Lower Decks, which I think has finished now. And I have maybe 3 episodes that I still need to watch. So this final season of Lower Decks has been a lot of fun. We watched a lot of random Christmas special stuff, classic Christmas specials. And Josh, you have access to my Plex server. So you know it. We have pretty much all of the old classics like Frosty and Santa Claus is coming to town and stuff like that. So we've been watching stuff like that. Also, went to YouTube and watched some random Bewitched and Will and Grace Christmas episodes, 2 shows that we both enjoy for their respective kitschiness. And they both had some stuff that was getting some visibility on YouTube because, well, it's Christmas time. And then we watched what is probably our favorite Christmas movie, Christmas with the Cranks. I'm sure I have mentioned this film before. It is Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's ridiculous and fun. And I think we watch it multiple times a year. Okay, that's embarrassing, but whatever. It's fun. And then as far as audio, I am continuing to listen through and enjoying the break that we're getting from podcasts during the holidays, listening through The House in the Cerulean Sea. I think I am maybe about a quarter of the way through. I have a long way to go yet, but I am absolutely enjoying it.
Dude, it's so good. You need to just focus on that. It's so good.
All right, that's it for me. How about you, Josh?
Okay. Well, games. I'm really loving Diablo right now, playing a lot of that, playing some Call of Duty. And I don't think I had mentioned this on the last episode. I finished Tales of Kenzara Zao. Still recommend that if you're looking for a fun Metroidvania. Movies. We watched Noelle. It's a new Netflix Christmas movie with, I can't think of her name. She was in, wow, I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Brunette woman who was in a singing movie previously.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. We didn't finish it, not because it wasn't good. Like there was some other reason we didn't finish it. It was entertaining. It has a lot of the like tropes of like Elf. So, and we love Elf. We absolutely love Elf. So Noelle was fun on Netflix. On TV, we tried a couple of new things. We tried Detroiters. I've heard so much, like I've heard on multiple podcasts, people talking about this show, Detroiters, as a comedy show. I'm amazed we made it through the whole first episode. We did not like it at all. We will not be going back to Detroiters. Just didn't really find it all that funny. And then we also, Jen had heard about The Diplomat, so we started that. We watched the first episode. Well, at least, like, I think Jen is pretty interested in it, and I'm not ready to say that it's not good. So I'll at least give that show another try or two.
Cool. I want to try that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then we are currently caught up on Silo. It's great. It's so good. And of course, Lions football and Severance. I'm almost through rewatching season 1. I'm really glad I'm rewatching it because, Richard, you know how terrible my memory is. There are important things about this season that I completely forgot about. And season 2 starts in less than a month. So
yeah, I need to do that myself.
Yeah. On the book front, I'm wrapping up a nonfiction book called The Manager's Path. If you are in like software development and want to be or are considering being a manager or tech leader, you should read this book. It's really good. It talks about every level and the things that you might expect from it and what it actually means, and lots of tips along the way. And of course, is available as an audiobook. And that's it in my entertainment center. Again, we mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the show. CES is about to happen in a little over a week. So Richard will be there. We will have some CES coverage like usual. So our podcast schedule will be a little bit different over the next couple of weeks to keep you prepared for all of that. Keep an eye on all of that. Also, follow us on social media to keep an eye on all of that. I'm at Josh Pollard on Twitter and Blue Sky and Mastodon, but I'm pretty much only on Blue Sky at this point. Richard is Richard Gunther on Mastodon. And what are you on Blue Sky?
RichardGunther.com on Blue Sky. And I suspect, I have to think about this. I'm not sure where I'm going to post stuff that intrigues me at CES. So I don't know if it's going to be Instagram or one of the socials. All right. Well, I'll let people know.
Okay. And the website is DigiMediaZone on Twitter. It hasn't made its way to Blue Sky yet, but probably will. But that's going to do it for episode 672 He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye. Woo, kind of close.
That went way longer than I expected.